with the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District. I'm the Planning and Development Manager, and we are lucky tonight to have Alex Gilbertson, our Principal Planner here, as well as Michelle Mathis from Learning Landscapes, to talk with you about the Concord Park and property. And I hope you really get a chance to learn more tonight and offer some comments and questions. So without further ado, please take it away, Alex.
Thank you, Heather. Hey, everybody. My name is Alex Gilbertson. I am a landscape architect and principal planner for North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District. I am so happy to see so many people here tonight. Thank you for attending. This is a really great time to share a design because the design is coming close to completion, and we want to engage folks, show you the vision and how the community has helped shape that vision. Not only do we want to keep you informed on the development of this project, but we hope to spark a little bit of excitement about your future park. So we gave the same presentation at a community event this past Saturday, and I have tried to incorporate as many of the questions that came up into this presentation. So if you have a question tonight, as Melina mentioned, and I'll just reiterate it in case some folks came in after it was said, if you have a question tonight, please type it into the Q&A box button that you can see at the bottom of your screen, and we will address them following this presentation. So before I introduce the design, I wanted to give a little bit of project background. Sorry, the sun decided to just come out right now and it's in my face, so bear with me here. NCPRD took ownership of the Concord Elementary School as part of a strategic partnership with North Clackamas School District in March of 2018. The plan for the school is to revitalize the building and surrounding open space for public use and to bring new amenities and recreational opportunities to residents in Oak Lodge and throughout the district. The master plan for the project was developed in 2019 through 2020 with input from over 1,300 community members. So we had a really great turnout during that process. And then the NCPRD Board of Directors adopted the master plan in January of 2021. The Concord property is located in the southwest part of the district in an area that has been identified as needing more parks and community services. And then this NCPRD owned property is just shy of 6 acres, and it sits quite prominently at the juncture between the highly commercial area fronting Southeast McLaughlin Boulevard, as well as the surrounding residential neighborhood. It is located in the heart of Oak Grove community and adjacent to the Jennings Lodge community in unincorporated Clackamas County between the cities of Gladstone and Milwaukee. And then down here in the bottom corner, highlighted in yellow, is the regional multi-use trolley trail that is 1/2 mile from the park and will improve the connection between the neighborhoods of Oak Grove and Jennings Lodge, as well as hopefully the district and beyond. So what we heard, NCPRD conducted a robust community engagement process in 2019 that placed a high priority on engaging underrepresented communities such as Spanish-speaking, low-income, and youth groups. And through online surveys, we had in-person open houses, we held focus groups. We were able to listen to the goals and priorities for this site and use that feedback to help shape the park design that was based on those community needs. And so that feedback that we collected indicated community interest in several different categories. And so I'm going to quickly cover the top 2 survey results for each category. Here we are looking at transportation. So we heard that the most common way you and your household will travel to a new park is by car and by walking were the top 2 responses. Ideas of experiencing nature in a park include planting native plants, providing shade and trees. Participants were asked what type of play they would like to see in the park, and we heard that nature play and multi-use active spaces were the top 2 responses. Ways to relax in the park include walking and picnicking. When asked how participants wanted to gather with friends and family in the park, we heard using flexible space and attending movies and concerts. And lastly, we learned that walking and organized activities were the preferred fitness activities to enjoy either solo or with a group. Okay, so the master plan, it was formed and shaped by this community feedback, and the park and play area design that I am about to jump into with you incorporates the elements that I just mentioned. But first, a little bit of context. Southeast Concord Road is over here to the right. Southeast Spalding Avenue is up here on the top, and Southeast Olive Avenue is over here on the left. The future community center and administrative offices will be located in the former Concord School Building, which is shown in gray. And the Oak Lodge Library, the new library, is shown in the middle of the site in that cyan color. So a question that came up on Saturday at Saturday's event wanted to know the distance of the planned walking path and whether or not it could be extended around more of the site. So I wanted to answer that. So we heard loud and clear that people want to walk. So we've developed, it's a 0.22 mile ADA accessible path, walking path around the park and pathways that connect to several different entry points that connect to the streets and sidewalks and that exist around the site. There's also a 0.16 mile of pathways and sidewalks through the plaza and in front of the existing buildings that are ADA accessible. In addition, there are some ways to extend the loop, but without full ADA access via around the back of the building. That's approximately 1/10 of a mile. The site really is meeting many objectives, and it has multiple physical constraints, from the need to accommodate a library, to include adequate required parking minimums, provide stormwater treatment, and accommodate grade changes. So this has made it feasible to provide all of what is shown, but not other path extensions. So the total length of paved walking path around the site is almost 1/2 mile. And there was another question that came in about whether or not there would be exercise or circuit training stations provided along the walking path. And I just wanted to note that that is not included at this time. So I'm going to zoom around and highlight different aspects of the design, starting with the main parking area. There is a large parking lot with access from Southeast Concord Road that will accommodate 152 standard spaces and 6 ADA parking spaces. A drop-off area will invite loading and unloading to increase and facilitate access into the site. And these orange boxes here denote bike parking. So we'll be providing 13 bike racks as part of the entry plaza that's close to the main parking area. In the bottom corner here, there's a large stormwater facility that will capture and treat stormwater surface runoff before it reaches the Willamette River. And then in this corner as well, you can see these large circles. Those are indicating an existing stand of trees along that property edge that will be preserved and protected in place. These trees will help provide shade for this section of the parking area, as well as many new trees throughout the parking lot itself and the site, really, to increase plant diversity and tree canopy. Addressing some additional questions that came in. Why are there so many parking spaces provided? The number of parking spaces provided is the minimum of what is required by the county code to accommodate the park, the community center, and the library uses, as well as some larger events such as outdoor movies and concerts. The next question, did you consider permeable pavement? Yes, the project explored different ways to capture and treat stormwater on site, permeable pavement being one of those methods. It can be an option in some areas. However, in this specific location, it was determined to not be feasible. It was ultimately ruled out due to its high price tag, heavy maintenance, requirements to vacuum out the system several times a year, failure of the system due to clogging, and limited durability for tight vehicular turning. The stormwater facility down here at the bottom corner of the parking lot is sized to capture and treat surface runoff for the entire site. And then the last question on this slide is the project making sidewalk improvements to Southeast Concord Road. The only improvements to the sidewalk along Southeast Concord include 2 new driveway aprons at the ingress and egress for the new parking lot, and repairing the sidewalk and curbs to close off the existing apron for the existing parking lot. The project will not be making improvements to the county road and right-of-way as part of this project. Here's a view standing at the edge of the parking lot looking into the park. The play area is off to the left here, and you can see the corner of the library building over here on the right. Up at the top is a key map. So if you're standing on that red little arrow, it's showing the direction that vantage point of the rendering is taken from. Going up to the top near Southeast Spalding Avenue, there's another small parking lot shown that will have 5 parking spaces and 1 ADA parking space, and as well as a secondary entrance into the park. Here's a view of that park entrance. The park pavilion that you could see in the background here, and then a large flexible field space in the foreground. Lots of beautiful trees that are native or adapted to thrive in our environment, will provide shade and a nice, comfortable, welcoming space. There's some interest to know how many trees we will be planting in the park. The planting scheme for the park, play area, and parking lot will incorporate over 140 new trees of different sizes and species. It will, of course, take some time for them to grow and mature into the trees that are as mature as the ones shown in this image. But as I mentioned previously, we're aiming to increase plant diversity and tree canopy with this proposed plan. Okay, moving to the entry plaza. So coming into the site is a large entry plaza that will be able to host programming and performances. The main entries into the Concord Community Center right here and into the new library here will be accessed from this entry plaza. So here's a rendering of the plaza on a typical day. The parking lot is over here to the left of the image. You can see the library here, and then these glass doors, windows. That is the new upgraded ADA entrance into the community center over here on the right. And then a view of the plaza with a festival. So the space is sized to accommodate tents, food trucks. I see your comment, Patty. So food trucks and can hold a variety of activities and programmed events. The amphitheater, middle right of the plan here, is a space that will create a really nice landscape zone directly outside of the library windows. This is sized where it could work for something smaller like story time, or it could also work for performances. There's some grade change, so we have incorporated a couple of seating tiers here in this L-shaped form that open up to the play area. And then across from the play area is, and adjacent to this open field is a picnic shelter and restroom. So this graphic illustrates just a concrete pad, but it would be the location for 2-stall, all-user ADA restroom with a drinking fountain. And then off to the back is a covered picnic area that would be sized to accommodate 4 ADA picnic tables and will provide help to provide year-round use for the park. There was a question about whether or not the restroom building is separated from the picnic shelter, and it is one pre-manufactured unit. However, there is separation between the uses. The doors for the restroom will be located on the side of the unit that faces Southeast Olive Avenue. And then on the other side of that is the park pavilion or the picnic shelter. Here is an image of a similar shelter restroom combo unit. Even though they share the same roof, the restroom and the shelter are essentially 2 separate units. I say this picture is similar because the doors are actually on the sides of the unit, and the one that would be located in the Concord property would have the doors flipped to the opposite wall. Here's a view of the amphitheater looking toward the library. This rendering shows a temporary stage set up for small performances that could be an example of how we could activate this space. And then here's the 2 seat steps, and then a nice lawn patch at the top to provide a flexible space for people to lay out blankets as an alternate seating option to the concrete stair steps. We had a question about seating capacity. The amphitheater is sized to seat approximately 135 people comfortably on the steps, and this is assuming an 18-inch width per person, so a nice comfortable width, but there's also the ability to sit on the grass above. And just a little side note, the 2-step scale feels friendlier and in general to people and families. The amphitheater is also the location of a future splash pad when funding becomes available. And we received a question about somebody wanting to know if we have funding to build the splash pad in phase 1. So this element is not included in the design at this time, but we just simply wanted to show you a rendering of what it could look like should we have adequate funding in the future. The playfield. We heard during the master planning process that a large flexible field space should be provided to accommodate organized activities such as movies and concerts in the park, as well as more passive activities like picnicking. So this multi-use playfield space is surrounded by a paved, 8-foot wide paved walking path. And in general, the lawn is gently sloped with shade trees and picnic tables kind of scattered around the perimeter. And here's a rendering standing at the Southeast Olive Avenue entrance, looking toward the park and play area. We received a question if cars are still allowed on Southeast Olive Avenue. So Olive Avenue within the site will become park, and it will be pedestrian access only into the park. No improvements are being made to Olive Avenue because this is a county road and not on NCPRD's property. Play area. So when we asked the community which type of play they wanted to see most at the park, nature play ranked the highest. We listened, and now we're working with a landscape architect that specializes in designing and building nature-based play spaces. But before I introduce Michelle, there was a question of whether or not is this play area being phased. So yes, the play area is being phased. Phase 1 will focus on physical play in the form of things like logs and boulders and rope climbers, as well as some sensory and imaginative spaces that integrate inclusion and nature-based play elements. And then phase 2 of the play area would be developed at a later time when additional funding becomes available. And this will add expanded inclusive play options and even more spaces that promote play between children of all abilities. So now I'm going to pass it to Michelle from Learning Landscapes to walk through the details of the play area design.
Thank you. We were really excited about the play area. It has so much potential, and we were able to fill the space with a bunch of really exciting things. So the first thing that we heard from the community was to look for nature play. So we started to think, what does nature play really mean to us? And in Oregon, we're thinking canyons with downed logs through them, and boulders, and hiking through forests and trees, and kind of being out in nature, and what pieces of that can we safely and long-term maintenance wise really fit into the play area. And then it's a high value of NCPRD, and really just a better value for our communities to be overlaying inclusion on that. And that means making spaces that everybody can play in, not only all abilities, but all ages, and everyone feels safe in. So we kind of overlaid those two components together. So the design, we started with 2 hill areas, and that's kind of on either side. On the bottom along the concrete walkway that you can, the sweeping walkway you can kind of see. And then on the right side more where the pavilion is, there are hilled spaces where they've got boulder climbing on the front, but they've got a nice gentle pathway up to the top of the boulders on the back. So there's an easy access where you can use a wheelchair or a walker or take a stroller up the backside and get to the top and have a nice vista. When we started to get out to some of the parts on the park, you can almost feel like you're part of the river and see a little bit farther distance. So we wanted to get people up a little higher so that they can be connected to the nature of the place too. And that gives that opportunity. It also helps with inclusion. And then on the front side of those mounds, we're thinking of boulder climbing. When we do boulders, kids are thinking a lot more about kind of that body-mind connection. It's kind of, they have to think about where their hands are going and where they're moving up the boulders versus like a climber or a ladder on a playground. That's very kind of measured out, and they're all the same, and the rungs are kind of the same diameter. So it's challenging enough, but we have the easy way to get up also on the backside. These create these nice sloping lawns too, where people can sit and have a picnic and watch kids play, or they're actually positioned where you don't even really have to look at the physical too, where you can just have a picnic area and kind of look out on the vista in the park. So in between those two kind of side components are physical play area in the middle. The turquoise swath that goes through is playground surfacing. In order to be really inclusive for folks that use wheelchairs or walkers or mobility devices, we want something that's firm, so they can move the wheelchair through it, but something that's still soft. So we call it impact attenuation and playground safety. So something that if you fall on it, it's squishy enough that it will help cushion that fall a little bit. So that's what that turquoise piece going through is. The left one that's kind of the gold octagon is a tower climber. So if you come up the long pathway that's sloping up to the top of the hill, there's a bridge across to it so that everybody has a chance to get on the tower, feel like they're up high. There's a roller slide that comes off the tower that has a good sensory tactile input on it and is a little bit wider so 2 people can ride down it, or an adult and a child can ride. There's also a second layer on the tower to make it a little bit more challenging, and a slide and other kind of climbing components to get on and off of the tower. The next component kind of to the right of that is a log climber. We also don't want to forget our tweens and our teens and have places that are challenging and kind of fun to hang out. So this component, it's easy enough that elementary school kids can get on there and enjoy some components of it. And it's challenging enough that you kind of get the opportunity for those teenagers to show off and hang out with their friends. Kind of the 2 tan areas are big nets where you can sit or you can roll. Those have a certain amount of inclusion to them too, because people can be set on them. You don't have to have a lot of core strength to climb or carry yourself around them, and you can still be part of the fun, feel kind of that movement of the play area. The next one up that kind of looks like a jelly bean in plan view, I think of it as this little island. So it's sitting inside the play zone. It's raised a little bit. We're hoping that those boulders are seating areas too. So if you are a parent or a caregiver or someone who would rather sit, there's a nice place to sit on the edge. but then there's a space inside that island for trees and imaginative play, and just kind of creates those special small spaces that are really important in a lot of the inclusion philosophy and attempts that we do in the playgrounds. There's a couple logs kind of crossing over from that jelly bean island. There's no jelly beans on the island. They go over to the other sloped kind of natural play area. The idea is these are kind of these bouldery, tree-filled kind of hills that just bring in nature and break up that big expanse of playground surfacing that you can find in some playgrounds. The big, the number 2s that have kind of that light green on them is lawn area. Those are flat, expansive lawn in phase 1, leaving us room to expand in phase 2. So the next one is photos of the components. On the far left is kind of a couple towers that we're looking at. We want to make sure that it's like low maintenance, so that we're not replacing wooden pieces, or we're not getting big facades that can be spray painted. So we're still considering how those pieces all fit together on the actual tower piece, but they're similar. They've got play climbing components off the sides and 2 different levels of slides and some sort of roof on top. The next one is the boulder climbing. This is an example. We really like to use boulders because they can be really easy to go up, almost like stairs, and they can be really challenging that you get to the end and you think, oh, do I really want to jump off of this? Do I feel safe enough that I can land somewhere? And in playground design, we talk about risk a lot, and good risk is something that we do want to offer kids. A hazard is something that they don't see and they run into, which we don't want on the playground, but we want them, risk is kind of a choice piece. We want them to get up to the top of the boulder and say, I'm not going to jump today, I'm going to go down this way, or I'm going to feel really brave today. And they can try it out in a place that's pretty controlled and has kind of that cushiony landing and is a safer place to push your boundaries. The bottom, right underneath the boulders, is somebody going down a roller slide. They are, I get a lot of questions on pinching and fingers. I feel like my generation of these roller slides weren't as safe in a way. These ones are great. They don't pinch fingers. You don't get stuff caught in them as easily. The middle area of the photo board is that log and net climber. Again, there's lots of challenge, but there's also simple ways to use it too. But right on the top is kind of the imagery of planting and wanting massings of planting. We like to use ornamental grasses because they can be kind of a yes space for kids, where we don't have to say, oh, don't go over there, don't run on that, you need to really stay over here, because ornamental grasses are really tough and you can stand on them and you can sit on them, and they're cut down every year to the ground and they regrow, so we don't have to worry about breaking branches and things like that. So we'll be kind of overlaying native plants and massings of grasses. The one below that is just showing sloping lawn and places for picnicking and people to gather near and in the play area. And then we're still working on kind of these imaginative nature features. At the moment, we're thinking like kind of chainsaw art inspired animal pieces that sit on the top of the hills and kind of in other areas. One of the important inclusion pieces that we'll be putting in is quiet zones on the edge of the play. Not everybody wants to run into the playground and run up right to the climber. They're more hesitant to join into groups, or we always run into kids that want to read on the playground. So quiet spaces where kids can not be part of that big physical play and really engage in the playground the way they want to. So finding these fun little gems of art or interpretive or imaginative pieces, we'll kind of be tucking those into the quieter corners of the playground. All right, so this graphic you can see is a little bit different. Those 2 large green areas have been filled out. So this is the future phase of the park when funding becomes available. I'm going to start on the bottom right side. There's kind of almost like a big L shape. It's a group of swings. We put in a bunch of different swings. One of them is a big rope swing, a couple of those round, we call them nest swings. They're maybe 3 or 4 feet wide. We really like these because you can sit on there and hold a toddler, and you can put 2 or 3 elementary kids on there, probably more. I've seen 3 or 4 teenagers standing on them and trying to get it going really high, and the swing can kind of handle all of those uses. It's great for folks that don't have the core strength to hold on to a swing, so it has a similar effect to kind of like the over the shoulder full inclusion swings. We've got a couple typical belt swings, like have been around for a long time, and then a couple toddler bucket swings where you can put a young person in. The yellow circular piece there is a inclusive spinner. It's similar to kind of the metal spinners of my childhood, but they make it a lot safer now. There'll be a photo of it on the next board. It kind of has a metal bar around the outside, so your momentum is held in by this edging a bit. There's a way to get, it's like a ground level, so there's a way to get a wheelchair on there. There's a small seat in it, which is what I use when I go on there with my kids because I don't really like the feeling anymore. So it really accommodates a lot of different uses, and a lot of people can play on it the way that they want to, which is nice because it really ups our inclusion in the park. Let's go to the middle upper part, kind of like the light gray that looks like it has kind of that blue squiggly line through it. This is a flat concrete plaza that has water play in it. We're looking at water play, trying to figure out a way that we can have something fun and something water related, but something that's not upping our maintenance. So a lot of the features that we're proposing are concrete. They do well in all weather. We can power wash them off, but they're really fun, and we can have elevated components in them and then a water channel through the plaza. When we try to recycle water in the play area, we have to get it back up to drinking standards. So we're looking at hundreds of thousands, probably like the $300,000 to $500,000 to recycle the water. So what we do instead is we limit the amount of water that goes into the play feature and just leave it above ground for a really long time so the kids can splash through it. I have a couple photos that kind of explain how that feels and looks on the next sheet. And then that last component that's kind of still light green color with the gray concrete pathway that goes through it is kind of this adventuring hills play area. So the top of it is 5 feet, the bottom of it is flush with the concrete. So I can use a stroller or mobility device to get all the way up, but there's lots of different ways to get up and down, slides, tunnels, boulder climbing, log crossings, and different animal themed features to climb on. So your kid will see it and say, oh my gosh, I want to go check all that out. And they'll want to go up and down and around and be able to kind of check out all the different angles and spaces within that zone. So the far left side of the image page is kind of that adventure zone that we were just talking about. There's something called playground turf. It kind of looks like AstroTurf in a way, but it has like a cushiony pad underneath it. We really like this product because it does well on hills, and it has a high play value. Like anywhere that there's the turf, it slides a little bit and is kind of an interesting texture and becomes a play element in itself. We do have a couple log crossings, like you can see the young man jumping off of it on the side, and different slides that come down from different heights and different levels. So we're hitting all sorts of different age groups and abilities. And then on the right, we haven't picked exactly which features are going in, but we want to pull that nature theme through. So pulling pieces that are exciting to use and kind of fit the overall theme and are kind of that lower challenge level, hitting at the interest level of our 2 to 5 year olds. The left side is the water play component. So the round ones are a product that we really like because it's got a like a weir on the end, and you can open and close the weir. The idea with water on playgrounds is that it's never really holding the water back, so there's no standing water. It reduces the danger of drowning and all sorts of things that come along with standing water. So the kids pump the water out, it flows through the system, they get to play with it while it's exposed, and then it goes into our stormwater facility. So there's a small gate or a weir on the bottom left, and just different ways that we can work with the water through the plaza, dividing channels, bringing them back together so kids can splash. I guess they could sit in it if they really wanted to, but it's not something that's going to spray them and get them wet in that way. It will be all ground-based water. Almost thinking like a creek or a drainage channel kind of feeling through the water. And then the right side is the swinging and spinning components that we're looking at. I couldn't find a photo of all of them together, so they're kind of all separated here. The top is the typical belt swing and the toddler swing. The middle is the nest swing components. The one that we like to use is kind of wrapped and soft on the outside and almost like, I don't know, it's a movable plastic chain component on the inside. So doesn't feel like kind of a hard rubber that we've seen on some of them. And then the bottom right is a long kind of rope swing. It all swings together. So the kids kind of have to work together to slow it down, get on and off, get the thing moving together. So it has a high social play component to it too. And it's something kind of novel and exciting. Kids really like to try it out when they see it and they want to try it out on the playground. And then the top right is the spinner. You can see there someone is coming onto it on a wheelchair in the photo. There's a seat on the left. There's just a lot of ways to engage with it, and it's kind of like unprescribed, so it gives a lot of flexibility. So a couple of the questions that we heard were describing the play surfacing. So all of the darker turquoise color is probably playground tiles or pour in place. It's like a soft rubber. All of the light green playground surfacing is fake turf. We probably won't use a giant swath of aqua for the playground surfacing. There's lots of colors that come in, but we'll lean towards more natural colors for that component. And then the turf is almost a real grass color. It's solidly green, which no grass really ever is, but the color palette will not be disturbing for kind of a natural view over the play area. The super light green is actual lawn, real grass, and then the dark green is planting area. There was a question about sand in the play area. Sand has a high play value, but a really high maintenance component to it also. So at this moment, we are just proposing that it's a water play area and we're not having sand in there. As many of the play materials as we can will be natural. We're aiming for real logs, real boulders. The impact attenuation is hard to get in a natural material. If we use something like a wood chips, it has good impact for safety related components, but it doesn't have good accessibility. So the surfacing will be non-natural materials, but all the components that we put in it, we'll try to make as many as we can natural. The reasons that we wouldn't are maintenance and safety related.
Great, thank you, Michelle. Just quickly, in the essence of time so that we can get to questions, I'm gonna quickly cover the timeline. Right now, we're working on the construction drawings for the park and site and completing the play area concept design that Michelle just spoke to. And then in the summer, we will be working to prepare a guaranteed maximum price for the construction of the park, shared spaces, and library, as well as obtaining building permits. And construction is anticipated to begin on October 1st and will begin with the library. We can start to see the park and community center upgrades begin to take shape in spring of 24. And then completion is estimated in early 2025. So last slide, what's next? If you are willing and able, please complete a comment form via the SurveyMonkey link that we have posted up here on the slide. We'd be very happy and appreciative if you could let us know your thoughts on the design and any comments you may have by April 28th. If you attended the community event this past Saturday and filled out a comment form, you don't need to do it again. It is the exact same form, but just available online for other folks to be able to weigh in. You can also email me at agilbertson@ncprd.com, and you can find out more information at the project website at ncprd.com/Concord-property-project. That's all we have for the presentation tonight. We are very excited to share this park and play area design with everybody very soon. So thank you for your time. And now we can open it up to the Q&A portion of the evening.
Great. So I see we have quite a few questions that have come in. Thank you so much, everyone who has submitted a question. If you haven't yet, and you're late to sign on, there is an icon at the bottom of your screen with talk bubbles, and it says Q&A. And if you open that up, the Q&A box will pop up and you can type your question there. So let's get started. We're going to go through these one by one. And again, thank you for your interest in submitting questions. So let's start with Patty. I see you have quite a few questions below, which is amazing, but we're going to start with just these first two. So, and let me know if I don't interpret these correctly, but was an enclosed dog run considered, or could there be an enclosed dog run? And then the second one is Alex, food trucks, which I know you addressed, but if you want to elaborate on that at all, that's theirs.
Yeah, currently the design does not incorporate an enclosed dog run. However, that's not to say that the park is not open to dogs. No specific dog run provided in the design at this time. And then, yes, I did address the food trucks during the presentation. A lot of the site and the property is set up to be able to handle performances, events, that kind of thing. And so the image that I shared with the entry plaza on with a proposed festival was really incorporating a lot of vendor tents, space for food trucks, etc. So yes, the design will accommodate food trucks.
Wonderful. So the next one is a comment, not a question, but I'm just going to mention it. So Lisa likes having 88 walking paths. So thank you for that comment. If you have any additional questions regarding the walking path, let us know. Next, we have a question from Richard. So will there be sufficient power available at the park for lighting and sound for performances and musical concerts?
Yes, we are currently working with the electrical engineer to make sure that we have adequate access to power at the amphitheater location, in the lawn area. The lighting that has been selected that will go around the perimeter path of the park will each luminaire or bollard light will have electrical access to that fixture, so that if we had a scenario where we had tents and food trucks that were sort of lining the entire park perimeter path, there would be access for them to have power. And so yes, the answer is there will be sufficient power available.
Thank you. So the next question is from Leslie. So the trees, the oak trees specifically that you mentioned, are not on the park property, and there's no guarantee that they won't be cut down by the owner of that property. Were there any efforts to obtain the piece of land, which is a small parcel?
I guess I'm not aware of any efforts to obtain that piece of land. It is not part of NCPRD property. I totally understand that those trees, if they're not on our property, we can't really control what happens to them. But as far as the design goes for on the NCPRD property, we are sizing that stormwater facility to make sure that we're not encroaching in the root zone of those large trees, so that we can make our best effort to preserve and protect them in place with the efforts that we have on our side of the property line.
Okay, so next question is from Jan. Hey, Jan. So nighttime lighting in the entry. Will there be nighttime lighting in the entries, the parking lot, the park, and the plaza?
Yes, that's correct.
The next question is, I live in a house bordering the park on Olive. How will this affect my property line?
There shouldn't be any impacts to your property line. The park edge will remain sort of where it is now. A new chain link fence will be put up along that property edge, and then there's a nice buffer between the walking path and that property line that will be planted with plants and trees and provide a little bit of space between the property edge and then the usable park space.
We have another question from Patty. So are we able to add, or will there be grass deterrent for geese?
We can take that into consideration as we go through this design, but at this time, we aren't providing any sort of fencing or anything along those lines for geese deterrent.
Okay. And then the next question is, will there be plenty of benches for seniors to sit on?
Yes, there are benches with companion seating along the perimeter of the walking path around the field. Within the play area itself, there are seat walls for people to sit on. There are seat walls around the seat steps in the amphitheater, as well as seating provided at both entries of the Concord Community Center and the new library.
Next question. The site plan shows playground space and plantings outside the park property lines. Are native plants planned to add to what is planted there on the Walmart property? This area does not currently seem to receive any maintenance, and homeless have been seen camping there.
Yes, that is correct. So the Walmart property line kind of does this weird little jut into the site, if you will. And so we are currently working with Walmart to obtain an easement in order to design and build the play area on the NCPRD property. And within that property line itself, we'll be providing a 10-foot landscaped buffer with a good neighbor fence along the edge of that property line to help with aesthetics, not being able to look down into that space, and basically the back of house for Walmart, essentially. And so, yeah, there are considerations being taken for that specific piece.
Next question. This one might be better directed at Jason, but will the library have rooms to rent out for meetings, etc.?
Yeah, great question. There is a community meeting space. If you look at that plan overview, it's basically in the top like right corner of the library itself, and that can be used for when the library is closed. That meeting space can be used. So.
Great. Next question, paired with a lovely comment. So who is the playground designer? Great design. Thank you so much for saying that.
The playground designer is Michelle Mathis from Learning Landscapes, and we agree. We think the design is lovely.
I swear I didn't plant them.
Great. Next question from Jane. So firstly, let me say thank you all for your hard work to reduce the park deficiencies in the Oak Lodge area. Jane, thank you so much for that comment. And then how will the planning and development of the Jennings Lodge Schoolyard Park be similar or different than the planning and development of the Concord Schoolyard project?
That's a great question. We are still in the throes of procurement for beginning this process, but it will be a similar process in that we will be going through planning and schematic design level effort for that schoolyard paired with community engagement. And so that project is still in the initial stages and has not kicked off yet, but we are working with a consultant to begin contracting with that work. But also, in addition to that, we are needing to work with the school district who actually owns the property and making sure that we have a solid intergovernmental agreement between North Clackamas Parks and Rec and Oregon City School District before we can begin that work.
So next question is from Jessica. So there won't be swings until phase 2, correct?
Right.
Next question. So will there be accessible restrooms added at any phase, or will there be access through the main building?
Yes, the restroom that will be provided as part of phase 1 will include two restrooms or all user restrooms that are ADA accessible as part of phase 1.
Right. And then this is a comment from Patty. So certain grasses attract geese, with the Milwaukee waterfront park as an example. And I guess that's just a comment. Do you have a response to that?
Noted, yes.
Okay. Great. And then
can I just add one thing on that? Because we have worked really hard at the Milwaukee Bay Park project to look at this. And unfortunately, there's not a one solution that really deals with the geese as sort of a problem. And so, it is something we think about on all of our sites. It is something we have somewhat limited control over, but we do. One of the good things about this site is it's not like a 3-acre grassy area. There is you know, some open grass, but there's a lot of trees and there's a lot of area that is planted. So it makes it a little less inviting at a salad bar, as a booth salad bar. And one of the strategies that always helps is kind of not having grass right next to a waterway, which is one of the issues that you have with a place like Milwaukee Bay Park. So being a little separated from the river in this case is actually kind of a good thing from a geese perspective. But yeah, we do appreciate that very much because it's a very big challenge. Thank you for asking that.
Thanks, Heather. The last question is from Jane. So what is the timeline for the project?
Yes, so the timeline is right now we're working on the construction drawings for the park and site. And we are working to finesse and sort of complete the play area concept design that Michelle presented today. So we will be working, so the project is set up as a CMGC project, which means it's a general contractor that's sort of sitting with us through the design of the project, and then we'll be able to then just begin to construct. And so they've been involved all along. We will be working to prepare a guaranteed maximum price for the construction of the park, the shared spaces and the library, and obtaining all of those necessary building permits this summer. And so that being said, the construction is then anticipated to begin in October for the project, which includes the library, the community center, and the park. All of that will begin in October, but it'll start with the library, and then the park and the community center will probably start construction in early spring, I would say. And then the completion for the entire project is anticipated in early 2025.
Okay, so that is all of the questions. Thank you everyone for submitting questions. Oh, no, there's a few more. They kept coming in. Sorry, I needed to scroll down. Great, so this next one is from Sue. So do you know where the drive around book deposit for the library is located? Jason, that's another one for you.
We're looking to add that right now in design, so it's kind of come up late in design, but we are looking for a spot in the parking lot to have that. I would guess it'd be somewhere in that parking lot, almost directly like south of the library, somewhere towards that end, but it's not been, design has not been finished on it yet.
Great, next question. So do you have dates for the different phases?
Yes, well, kind of. So the phase 1 of the playground will be part of the project, the base project that begins in October. Phase 2 of the play area that Michelle highlighted today, we have applied for a local government grant with the Oregon Parks and Recreation Department to fund phase 2. The application has been submitted, and if we are successful, we would learn that this fall. And the hope is that we would be able to build phase 2 of the play area in conjunction or close to on the heels of phase 1.
Okay, great. And then we covered this one a little bit, but just in case someone was late signing on, has there been any contact with Walmart about the property behind it?
Yeah, just to reiterate, can you guys hear me? I'm having issues with my mic. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, we have been in touch with Walmart, you know, because it's a negotiation, we can't say a lot about the details, but the discussions are underway to finalize an easement. And I think that's all we kind of have to report, unless Jason, you've got any newer news.
No, you basically stated what I was going to say, is we are in negotiations, and hopefully we can wrap it up sooner than later, but we've gone through quite a bit with them to this point.
Great. Next question. Where can we see more plans for the library?
Jason, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, we have a website specifically for the libraries. And of course, I don't have it off the top of my head, but I think maybe Melina, we can throw a link to
We
that
can-
website in the chat.
So the NCPRD website, it's ncprd.com/Concord -property-project. That website can link you to the library's website.
And then the next question, I think this is a clarification from Jane, the timeline of the Jennings Lodge school project.
Oh, I think I gave you the timeline for the Concord project. Okay. So the timeline for the Jennings Lodge school project, like I said, we are still in contract negotiations. We need to finalize the IGA between the school district and NCPRD and get the finalization of that. We're hoping to get that in the next couple months, and then we can begin kicking off that project. So it's soon, I just don't have a definite timeline yet.
Next question. So when will the existing park playground no longer be accessible for public use?
So like I said earlier, the construction of the project will begin in October of this year. It's still the details of where the laydown of construction efforts will take place and how extensive the excavation for the library is still being kind of finalized and determined. We should be able to have a more definitive answer to this question probably early in May. Jason's shaking his head yes. And so I will, I guess, defer to Jason for more details if he has it. But at this point, we're thinking beginning of October is probably when the park and play area will be sort of inaccessible for public use.
Yeah, we'll have some more information as we work through it with our general contractor, but it's likely that starting in October, it's either going to be fairly limited or we won't have access to most of the site besides the school itself.
Great. And before I get to this next question, I just want to call out that the URL for the library portion of the project is clackamas.us/library project. So the next question is, what is the cost and will there be any grants?
Sure. So the latest estimate for the park and playground was just over $4 million. However, we are expecting revised cost pretty soon here from the contractor. We will be funding improvements across the site. So some of those shared areas would be including like parking and utilities. That also would include renovated north entry to the community center that will improve ADA access. And so there's some things going around, but essentially just over $4 million. However, we will need to make final adjustments to the project to make sure that we don't exceed the funding that we have available. And then as far as grants, as I said earlier, we are seeking grant funding to help us with building out the full realized concept for the play area. And then that grant would, if we are successful, would build that out.
Okay, next question. So will Concord Elementary School be torn down?
No, it will not be torn down. It's a gem on the site, and it's going to be the feature of the new community center for NCPRD, as well as the administrative offices for the district.
And this one was covered already a couple times, so I don't know if you want to touch upon it again, but the last question is, have you addressed landscaping the Walmart property up against their building?
Up against their building. I guess I'm not entirely sure of that question, but the Walmart property that's adjacent to the NCPRD property, we will be providing approximately a 10-foot buffer, a landscape zone to provide screening that's both appropriate to screen the Walmart property as well as its adjacency to the play area. So we want to be mindful of what we put in there to make sure that it's compatible with the play area.
Great. And that is the end of the questions and the end of our scheduled meeting time. So that aligns perfectly. Well, thank you everyone for submitting questions. Again, if you haven't had a chance to complete the questionnaire, please do. You can access it through our project website, which is ncprd.com/concord-project. And you can find it there as well. And we'll be posting the presentation there as well.
And just a quick note to, if you could fill that out by the 28th of April, so that gives about a week to fill out the questionnaire, that would be great. Well, thank you
so much, everybody.
Yeah. Go ahead, Heather.
No, we appreciate everyone being here. I know some people have already signed off, but we really appreciate it. And please feel free to come to our website and check in on either, if you know people who want to see this presentation, it will be posted in a few days. Again, that questionnaire, and we're really excited to just be in conversation with you. It's an exciting project. Good night, everybody.
Bye.